The ultimate all-in-one electric homebrewing system is here. The new Grainfather G40 can produce up to 11 gallons of beer and features all the latest advancements in homebrewing technology, including wireless control so you can monitor your brew day from the Grainfather app. With an innovative new grain basket design that improves workflow, reaching mash efficiencies of 75% or more is easy. The 3300-watt heating element brings your wort to a boil quickly without any scorching, and the large hot plate filter guarantees that no unwanted grain matter or hop trub reaches your fermenter. Every G40 comes standard with a high-powered built-in pump that can handle temperatures over 200 degrees Fahrenheit and a full 3-year warranty that guarantees you'll be able to keep on brewing no matter what. The Grainfather G40 is available now at your favorite homebrew retailer or online at grainfather.com. Today's show is brought to you by Imperial Yeast. You hear us gushing over Imperial Yeast all the time, and that's because their yeast performs for us in every batch that we brew. Imperial Yeast is adored by commercial breweries and home brewers alike. Their pitch-right pouches are jam-packed with over 200 billion fresh yeast cells, guaranteed to deliver flawless, fast fermentations every time. Imperial Yeast strains are grown by a team of pro brewers and home brewers who live to help other brewers learn more and ferment better. Join any recipe receiving tier of our Trub Club and get a free upgrade to premium Imperial Yeast with every recipe kit that ships out to you. Learn more at homebrewhappyhour.com/club and come brew with us.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
Preventing suckback when cold crashing, comparing metal versus plastic faucets, pressure fermentation and temperature control, and what to do for when you feel burned out. This is Homebrew Happy Hour, episode 270. Hello and welcome to the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. If you have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, go to homebrewhappyhour.com. Click on that submit a question link at the top of the page, or now you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. I am your host, Joshua Stubing. I am joined by the Director of Operations at cmbecker.com over there, Mr. James Carlson, as well as the President and Chief Keg Washer of kegconnection.com in the cool Eagles concert t-shirt, Mr. Todd Burns. Hey, man, are you taking it easy?
I'm taking it easy.
Yeah, over here in Hotel California, I don't know, something Lion Eyes. I'm trying to think of all the song titles of Eagles songs. Sorry. They have a great catalog. Here, I'll kill the music. I know how much you hate it. The Eagles, for my money, they have one of the greatest catalogs of rock bands. I mean, they're I
don't know. Pink Floyd's pretty close.
Oh,
pretty good.
Oh, yeah. Well, for me, James, you're the one. You don't like the Beatles, right?
I've come around. I kind of like them now.
Okay,
the older stuff when sure. They,
before dropping acid.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Pre-acid Beatles. I kind of like.
I liked acid Beatles. I liked. So we know people who like the Beatles on acid. So like it's it's all a thing. But no, Eagles. When I was learning guitar as a young boy, my dad would arrange these jam sessions. And one of the first songs we learned as a jam band was Hotel California. And by learn, I mean the guy who was running it would rip through the solo and we're just playing the chords, right? Like but it was going to
say, the solo. Yeah. I want to hear that.
Oh, yeah. Next time I come up there, I'll play it for you on do, 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 do. Yeah, it's terrible. But I'm wearing a band shirt too, but this is one of the metal bands I used to be in college, Hope for the Dying. So that is not one we can talk about their catalog because it's just not that interesting. But anyways, happy to have y'all on the show. It's been fun and busy. We've had a lot going on. It's March already. I cannot believe it. I want to give y'all a heads up. If I keep getting up to the camera and looking, my wife watched an episode and she said, your eyebrows are so thick, they're going into your eyes. And so now I'm self-conscious because I don't want to Todd, your wife one time said something about my eyebrows. She goes, "Do you ever trim them?" I was like, "Is that something people do?"
Not guys.
My wife walks up to me at least once a week and just pulls an eyebrow hair out of my eyebrows, which is just incredibly painful.
Yeah, and brutal. Yeah, it's mean.
And I go, "Ow! Why do you do that and not say anything?" And she's like, "Oh, try giving birth sometime."
My wife goes to that too. I could stub my toe and all of a sudden it's a pissing match. Oh, try to push your babies out of your, and I'm like, well, first off, we have different parts, but you can't compare that. All I complain about is stubbing my toe. Anyway, let me get us on topic for brewing stuff before I go into Trub Club stuff. We have, Todd, I believe you have 9 beers ked, 9 different beers ked at the barn.
More than that.
Oh, you have 9. Yeah. You have all 9 taps going.
All 9 taps going. I have 3 more beers that I don't have room for.
Yeah, he asked me yesterday, do you need a beer? Because I got a lot.
Well, and we already discussed last week, you took the lemon drop and you sent us a picture. You are claiming, James Carlson, it is the best beer that Todd's ever brewed. You still stand by that? I think
it's better than the ESB.
Shut up.
It's amazing beer. Yes, it hits every segment. It's clear. It's got the right aroma. It's got the right finish. It's got the Pilsner bite to it. It's amazing. Todd, you did a fantastic
job. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
And here,
that would be something I would consider seriously entering into a competition.
You know what? You mentioned that. So my cousins came over last night, and I was like, "Oh, y'all got to try this beer." Well, I was switching out the regulators, putting the new CMB regulator in there, and I didn't really get it done. So I shut the lid and went to bed the night before. I left the thermostat out. All my beers were frozen.
No!
Yeah.
Todd!
I mean, that's happened before. I just
they'll thaw out.
They'll thaw out and be fine. I just left the lid open today. But I couldn't serve him a beer. That was my point.
Yeah. Well, the bummer too is that they all froze over. That's not enjoyable. But Todd,
it won't hurt. It doesn't hurt him. I've done it before.
Oh, it doesn't. It doesn't affect the integrity.
No, you remember I had that alt beer that we took to Homebrew Con somewhere.
And they don't.
I don't remember.
They don't normally. These didn't freeze solid. These froze. What starts to happen is the water separates out. I think that's how they make like that ice beer. Is they freeze it. They freeze it a little bit to remove some of the water, and then it's stronger than hell. But the mistake you don't want to make, because my kegs fairly regularly a part of them will freeze because the key, they're a little too close to where the thing is on the keezer that's cooling or something like that. I'll get a partial freeze. You got to be careful about those partial freezes, because the next thing you know, you're drinking 12% beer,
Yeah, Todd did text us as you were forced carbing the other night, and you're like, my problem is I get too drunk when I'm
I have big beers he's been brewing.
It is.
I can't force carbonate too many beers at one time. I have learned my lesson.
It's hilarious. It's like, I think we should do a show. We need to launch another show called Forced Carbing with Todd. And then
I know. And I looked at that text the next morning. I noticed it because somebody sent me another text, and I was like, oh my God, that text is like a small book.
It is. You did. I know when you've been drinking, because you're either nice to me or you write like these long-winded texts like you're doing a Yelp review or something. Like, good God. But yeah, you have a lot of beer. So does that mean, have you slowed down on your brewing finally? Like, are you going to have a weekend?
I can't brew anymore. I mean, I don't have anywhere to put any more beer. I've got beer in the walk-in upstairs too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny, which I brought home a recipe, and I think I'm going to do a live brew day pretty soon for members of our Trub Club. Now, I'm brewing last month's recipe, which we have kegged, which, by the way, oh my gosh, James, that alt beer turned out fantastic. I'm so happy to have it at my pop's place. We haven't put it on tap yet, but I tried some off the keg already, and it is phenomenal.
And you got the filtered one.
I did get the filtered one.
Yep.
We should have done a comparison before I took it home. I mean, I'll be able to tell the difference. We did the filter video. It has not published yet. We did a little more takes than I thought I would, and so I'm having to edit it together. And we had other
technical.
Shut up.
Edit.
No,
not the edit thing again.
Anyway,
so guys, that will be ready from my past experience when there's editing situations.
I hate you.
That should be ready by this summer.
I hate you.
Around the time that it starts to get really hot.
Summer 2023. Okay, we've got a lot of. But the other video that Todd filmed on the soda carbonating kit that we're selling, the fizz kits, that one's queued up and almost ready to publish. I'm gonna publish it tomorrow, Friday afternoon. That one where Todd, there was a scene in it. I don't know if you remember. You can hear me yelping in the background as you were doing the shaking of the plastic bottle, and you made a point. I think that's when you commented, "Oh, the person filming doesn't like this part." I had to edit out the audible that I was making behind the camera. It's kind of embarrassing. Maybe I should leave it back in.
But, yeah, you should leave it in. I like that.
Anyway, so before we get to our questions and stuff, let me remind you, because it is March and a new month for our Trub Club recipe receiving tier for the month of March. There it is on the screen. You guys can't see it, but I can. A delicious brown porter, which will be shipping with A10 darkness from our friends at Imperial. We love that yeast. We love that yeast company, obviously. And the brown porter, it's been a while. I had to look. We haven't had it on tap, Todd, in like 5 years.
Wow.
But you have brewed it, but it was like 5 years ago. It's been a very long time. I'm looking forward to us having it back on tap. And
are you're brewing it?
Well, I'm going to say that. Well, that's what I was thinking. I haven't brewed the alt yet. Maybe what I should do is keep the alt grains to the side, and when I come up next week, take home the brown porter.
Yeah, that'd be good. I wouldn't mind having a brown porter before. Yeah, that'd be okay. That'd be nice.
Then that's what I'll do. I'll put I can brew. I mean, we have plenty of alt beer on tap already, so I can brew the brown porter. I'll do a 10-gallon batch on the G40, and we'll get that going for us in-house. But yes, let me put that back on screen. The brown porter, if you go to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour, join our recipe receiving tiers. That's what we're shipping out. And at any level, this month, we're giving away a $50 gift card to kegconnection.com. I promise you that's not because I'm lazy with gift ideas or whatever. I was going to do a $25 gift card, but our buddy Simon, who is our first question today from the UK, he donated his $25 gift card he said, just put it to a good use. He actually told me, he said, Josh, just treat yourself at Todd's expense. And I was like, that's not a bad idea. But I threw it into a collaborative gift card. So any level, whether you're $1 supporter up to the top tier that we have, you'll be entered in for our March giveaway of a $50 gift card to kegconnection.com. It's a cool. I mean, I'm excited about March. Every time I blink, it feels like I'm up there fulfilling recipes upstairs, covered in grain dust. Last time I at least wore a mask. I walked down one time and James was like, "You were milling grains, weren't you?" Like, my whole body caked.
I've never seen you work so hard. It's impressive.
Yeah, but thank God, knock on wood, all the above, no one has had any issues with those orders, because I'm thoroughly ready to throw someone else under the bus. As soon as they go, Josh, I don't think you milled my grains right, I'll be like, oh, I think Todd was helping me up there that day. I don't remember. I'll get back to you, and then ignore them. But anyways,
I'll tell you what's impressive is Todd, have you watched him ship? He's fast at it. And I was like, that one day I turned around and you had them all done. I don't know how you do them that fast.
Maybe that's his calling.
Oh, no.
It's impressive. It really is.
Who knew?
I peck away and you're like.
Todd, we know warehouse work is not my calling. We've known from the beginning. We've told that story on this show. When I interviewed for this job almost 14 years ago, my early caveat was, I know it's a manual labor position and you're going to hate me at manual labor. But I could learn the company, and as you grow, I could do other things less awfully as I do manual labor. And it's kind of worked out. It's worked out for one of us. But anyway, we have questions. Let me get to these questions. Our first one does come from our buddy Simon from the UK. Let me turn up the tablet, and here is Simon's question.
Hi, guys. Quick question from Simon here in England about cold crashing. How do you prevent suckback into your blow-off chamber during cold crashing? And during the cold crashing period, do you crash all the way down to 4 degrees straight away, or do you do it in stages? I've read stuff that says you should perhaps do it at 1.5 degrees per 12 hours or so. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Cheers, guys.
Now, oh yeah, y'all are unmuted. Okay. Now, we've had questions about suckback before. I think I've said I've never experienced it noticeably to where I don't do anything significantly out of the way when I'm cold conditioning to prevent suckback. But
yeah,
and y'all usually are cold conditioning in conicals. Does that make the difference between preventing suckback as opposed to if you were transferring, or what do you got for Simon? I'll start with you, James.
Well, what we do, and you're right, we typically use a little bigger tube. And like, I think the one that we're using, Todd, is it 1/2 inch ID tube.
Yeah.
And then, so we have quite a long length of tube going into a bucket of water, sanitized water. So the suckback, it will pull some of the liquid up into the tube, but it doesn't have enough power to pull it all the way into the conical. But people that have just the air bubblers or the dual bubble one piece, that can happen because, the water expands and contracts. So as it's cooling, it's contracting, it's pulling a vacuum inside. So, as long as you've got sanitized water in there, you should be fine. I've had it happen before and never noticed a difference in the way it tastes. Because at that time, I think we agree that, there's quite a bit of alcohol in the liquid anyway. So I just never have had an issue with suckback. It's not anything I worry about anymore.
When I took his question, I actually went in before I just had y'all's Kolsch, and for listeners, Todd was so disappointed that I forgot to bring it up there the last trip. But I when I was transferring from the fermenter to the keg, my airlock was still full of it, and that was the first time I think I consciously looked like, was there suckback when I moved it into cold condition, and I couldn't notice it. James, when you said it happened to you, is that how you knew? Was just because the airlock? You
can see a liquid. You can see the liquid level way
down, right? Yeah. But that's the only way you knew, right? Because like you said, the taste was not affected.
It worried me. But after, tasting the beer, kegging it, carving it, tasting it, I didn't taste a flaw in it. I guess it is possible to contaminate the beer if you've got some really nasty stuff in there. But as long as you keep sanitized water in your airlock and you can change it out, fairly often, I think you'll be fine.
Todd, is suckback ever an issue with you? You're an adult. Don't laugh at that. There's no euphemisms. No, you know what? Emily and Dragonfly Lady, they're all leaving us 1-star reviews now because you laughed at suckback.
So first of all, I have to say this is another Simon on the show. I never hear that name. It's the name of my dad, my brother, and my nephew. So nice to have another Simon on the show. Thank you. The other thing I was going to mention, because there are 4% of the world doesn't understand the degrees that he's using, because I'm fairly confident he was speaking in that Celsius language.
He was, and at first it confused me. I was like, that's so cold.
But anyway, for those for the 4% of the world that don't use Celsius, that's what he was talking in. So yeah, I do not. James, you pretty much addressed the suckback issue. That's your area of expertise. So I'm going to address the other part, which was the what was the other part?
The cold crashing.
Cold crashing. Yeah, at 1 degree. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, in steps or not steps. Yeah.
I don't do any kind of steps. I just throw it in there. Well, I do cold crash in a couple of different ways. First of all, if I've got my fermenter where I've got my glycol system, then I cold crash with that, and that's where I would probably see suckback, because you can start to see sometimes the liquid going up the tube. But I'm like James, I've never had it go all the way up and go in the beer. Or I guess you said you had it happen once, but I've never had that happen. I've seen it go maybe 20% of the way up the hose at the most. And it's pretty long, it's hanging all the way down from that tall fermenter. So it would really have to.
Yeah. For your setup, it would be some serious pressure, right? That would be building.
Yeah. And then the rest of the time I'm using bubblers, and with bubblers, if you've got them the way they're supposed to be, they really shouldn't be able to suck back. Because unless you overfill them, then it could happen, obviously. But that could even happen when you're fermenting, I guess. If you have a bloob and then it goes down and you got too much in there, I'm sure I've done that before and I've never had an issue. Yeah. So I don't do any kind of I don't pay any attention at all to what my idea of cold crashing is getting it as cold as I possibly can, which generally is not as cold as I would like it to be, because with our fermenters, a lot of times we can only get them down to like 40. When I do it in my glass carboys, a lot of times I can get those down to like 36. But I just pop them in there and don't look at them again for at least a week.
Well, James, is there, like if we're doing a lager or sometimes with the Kolsch or whatever, we do it the opposite direction where we might bring it up to room temp for that diacetyl rest or whatever. Is there any benefit though for the step fermenting on the lower end, like to go for a week at this and then lower it a little bit for another?
Well, y'all remember a few years back at HomebrewCon, Mike Tasty McDowell, he did a class about cold crashing. Do you remember that?
I didn't attend it. That was the year we were walking. You actually were the one who got him on the show.
Did. Yeah. And I that was a good seminar. It was a lot to soak in. He had a step where he would do so many degrees a day to a certain degree and then hold. And then, and I tried that and it worked. And there's people that believe in stepping down, like a temperature 1.5 degrees every day until you get to a certain degree. And then once you hit that, then you can go, you'll have to Google it, because I don't remember exactly the steps, but he said his was foolproof and it created a better lager. I don't do that. I just hit the temperature controller to 35 and just let it do its thing. So we've had really good success. And I would say most of the beers we brew now, pretty much all of them are lagers. I know, Todd, you've been doing some ales, but
yeah, I do some ales.
Just about every beer, the last ale that I brewed was the alt beer, but everything I brewed in the last year or so has all been lagers. And I just cold crash them when I do the diacetyl rest after primary fermentation's done. For the most part, you get 10, 20.
Right. Yeah.
Go to room temp, let the diacetyl the yeast eat up the diacetyl. And once we hit final gravity, I just dial that temperature controller on the chiller to 35 and just let it fall.
Yeah. Todd, what are you showing there?
So those are the last two beers I cold crashed, and I kegged them the same day. And the lighter beer actually has some wheat in it, so you would expect it to have a little bit of haze. But I actually poured one day before yesterday out of the same keg once the keg had settled down, and it was just absolutely clear. It almost seemed too clear. It's amazing how clear they can get them with just cold crashing. It really does.
Cold crashing in time.
Cold crashing in time. And right now, Todd's kegerator only has time. So
only has time.
You're gonna have a ton of clear beer. Talking about HomebrewCon and stuff. Well, first off, rest in peace, Tasty. Poor guy. He passed away. Was it last year? I think, right, from cancer.
Yeah,
he was incredibly good to us and nice to us, and even hung out with us that evening. And he even kind of laughed at my jokes. So that was. But talking about HomebrewCon, Todd, I don't remember if we covered it last week. I did get our thing submitted. We are just now awaiting if they're going to let us do our seminar on building a keezer at this year's HomebrewCon. But
okay,
so I did my part. They're very nice about me being late with it, but.
So we'll actually be in a room with people.
If they allow us, we're going to be. Yeah, and
I'd be really surprised if they locked it down again.
You're assuming that people are going to come to our seminar, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, and reminder.
We could each take turns setting in the audience.
Oh, that's brilliant! I'll go up to the mic and be like, "What is the name of your podcast again? It sounds so interesting." And then run up to the stage. Oh, homebrewhappyhour.com. Yeah, if you're going to HomebrewCon, again, like James said, I wouldn't be surprised either if it gets shut down. But I'm just a negative Nancy. I'm a pessimist.
I think it's going to happen this year.
I hope so. I hope so. Y'all are about to go to CBC. When CBC happened last year, but they shut down HomebrewCon, remember? So I was about to say, oh, if CBC happens, they'll definitely do HomebrewCon. But that last year, they shut down HomebrewCon and still did CBC. I believe.
But remember they moved CBC much later in the year.
Oh, that's right. They did it in September last year.
Yeah,
you're right.
So
this year it's May again, correct?
That's when it normally is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think everything's going to start going now. There's another trade show that unfortunately I wasn't able to go to that's happening this week. It's about to happen. I think starts on Friday.
It does. Yep.
And I know that one's going forward because one of the guys that we deal with a lot is on his way there right now. So
yeah. It's trade show season, and thankfully things are slowing down in regards to virus stuff, to where people can get in. I like trade shows mainly because Todd pays for everything, so it's like, I mean, also the business part of it and the networking and the relationships we establish with vendors, all that stuff too. That stuff's fun. I do hope I hope that they give us the green light to do the presentation, because this is like my favorite topic. We submitted on building a keezer on any budget, and we kind of did a similar one, HomebrewCon Online 2020, but this one's going to be different because it's going to be going over, very straightforward builds for your first time, or adding on if you want to expand, or building like the deluxe Todd Burns in his barn keezer with the bells and whistles. So we definitely
and frozen beer
yeah, Todd's Frozen Beer Emporium. Yeah, we're doing a presentation on that, or hopefully. But anyways, I'm digressing so much. Simon, thank you so much for submitting the question.
Thank you.
And thank you, Simon, for donating your $25 gift card. Because remember, guys, if and when we choose your submission on a future episode, we do give you a gift card. If it's a voicemail, you get a $25 gift card to techconnection.com. If it's a text or email or your Facebook message, I get those a lot, or Instagram message, it's a $15 gift card. Still good, guys, to techconnection.com. Free money, all courtesy of gray hair down there, Mr. Todd Burns. Anyway, moving on to question number 2, which is a text from our buddy Adam at the hotline 325-305-6107. Adam wrote, "My understanding is that if I want metal faucets, stainless is the only way to go. Do you agree? Also, are plastic faucets equally sanitary, or will I need to clean them more frequently than metal faucets?" I was going to say this is a James Carlson question. This is both of y'all on faucets, but I'm going to throw it to you first, James, because my pop and I switched over to the X1s, which are plastic. And I've loved them. It was a very budget way to get into flow control. We haven't had any sanitation issues with them. They're, the cream ratch and everything.
They clean real well, too.
They do. They seem to clean real well. So I can't say with authority that metal is superior to the plastic, because I just don't know the intricacies. What would you say at first glance, helping out Adam?
Well, I mean, stainless steel is good. If I was going to get a metal faucet, absolutely, hands down, I would not get a chrome-plated anything. I would get stainless steel all day long. The X1 and the X2 faucets that Becker offer, they're a polymer body, and they're really good for highly acidic beverages, and they clean real well. There's not a whole lot to them. They're really tough. They're a lot tougher than you would think. Not as tough as stainless steel, of course, but when we provide faucet body or faucet assemblies to Twin Peaks through an outside vendor, they're using our faucets for their systems. You would not believe, if you just sat at a bar, any chain restaurant, and watch the people working those faucets, how much abuse they can take. And we get bodies from time to time come in, but they're extremely tough, a lot tougher than I would have given them credit for when I first started. So they're both equally good. There's benefits to one and benefits to another.
Todd,
but,
you agree with the first part of, if it's going to be metal, it should be stainless?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not afraid of a brass faucet. I think that people have been using them for 100 years. I know there's some concerns about lead and things like that, but these days, I don't think you're gonna. I don't know. I don't. we sell a lot of them. I mean, a lot of brass chromed faucets, and we've never had any issues with them other than the fact that they're rear seal instead of forward seal. And with the rear seal, you will get sticking. And so if you don't, you have to clean them or use them on a regular basis, or they're going to stick. And when they do stick, it's not terribly hard to unstick them. The best thing to do would be to, of course, cut the flow of your beer off first and then remove the faucet from the shank. I say that because how many times have I started to remove a faucet and realized the beer was still on? And if soak them in a little hot water, and you usually get them going again. What I wouldn't do is don't try too hard to get them unstuck without doing that, or you can break the lever. We actually sell a lot of levers, so
we do. That's it's impressive amount. Yeah.
I mean, I don't personally. I've used a lot of chrome faucets, or I should say, brass faucets with chrome plating. I've used a lot of them in the past. I've used them for years. I currently do not have one anywhere in any of my systems. The one at work and the two systems I have at home. On my kegerator, which has 3 faucets, I'm using the plastic flow control faucet, the X1, and I absolutely love them. I have the one with the stainless steel bent nozzles. I really like the looks of those, but they don't necessarily perform any better. I just like the way they look. The standard ones work great as well. The X1 it's really, really a good faucet. It's an excellent faucet, and I've been very happy with it over the years. The V10 is the stainless steel one that we use a lot, and that's what's on my Keyser build that you were talking about earlier. And the beautiful thing about those is that they are forward seal, so they're very almost never stick. I mean, if you leave one for 2 months with beer in it and let it dry out, it'd probably stick. But I've never had mine stick ever, so that's nice. I do keep them pretty clean. I have a regular cleaning schedule, and that helps. But yeah, I think that the other thing that's super important here, I think that everybody needs to look at is, what are you serving? Because we're assuming you're serving beer, but a lot of people serve beer, and then sometimes they serve soda, either carbonated water or actually soda pop, or you may serve wine, you may serve coffee. There's a lot of things that you can serve out of these faucets. You do not want to ever serve anything but beer out of a brass chromed faucet. Anything else will eat the chrome away, including, and I've never 100% understood this, but including carbonated water. It's more corrosive than beer is.
I had no idea.
It has to do with the carbonic acid, and I guess the beer kind of neutralizes that a little more. I'm not a chemist. My dad is, but we can have him on and explain it sometime, I guess.
I'm sure it has to have something with pH, with just carbonated water versus a mashed liquid with.
So, use stainless or use the plastic faucet if you're serving anything but beer. If you're serving beer, I would still prefer the stainless. And they do make the standard faucet in stainless too. So even if you're just going with a standard faucet, you can get those in stainless as well. They're more expensive. And they last forever, though. And you don't ever have to worry about the chrome flaking off at some point and that sort of thing. They're really nice. Of course, again, if you can afford the forward seal, go for it. So
that's what always worried me over the years with the chrome plated brass faucets was the flaking. Like, I'm not quite like Prop 65 worshiping kind of like, oh, everything causes cancer, but it's not good with when it's flaking and your liquid that you're consuming is brushing over that. It's probably not that hygienic. But we know many people who customize their systems through us that refuse to let their liquid touch anything that's not stainless besides the tubing. Like they'll
stainless or plastic. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, like there are people we've met who are customers rather, not just that we've met, who are insistent. Like, I want a stainless steel if it's a commercial setup, I want a stainless steel coupler and with the pro being stainless, right? That's what the liquid's touching. To stainless steel tailpieces, to the stainless steel, just because they're that's gung-ho.
I mean, that's what I would.
Well, exactly.
That's what I would do.
No, I'm not knocking them. I'm saying though, that's just
what I would do.
That's being as sanitary as possible, right? For the setup.
Everything that touches my beer on all of my systems is either stainless or plastic or NSF hose.
And exactly. Right. And that's how you can kind of future proof your setup for being as hygienic as possible. And like Todd said, the stainless stuff lasts forever. As long as you're taking care of it, it'll last forever. Like the biggest compliment I see of those V10s, James, first off, they're beautiful. That's the first compliment everyone says, is that they're beautiful faucets. But just how long lasting and durable they are. I mean, you have tap rooms using these, right? That will call you and be like, oh, I need a replacement, whole line of new faucets. And you're like, or we could just send you a rebuild kit. Send you a rebuild kit, because those things, maybe the lever is 8 years old, and like you said, at a bar, man, people are brutal on faucets, but they last forever. The faucet body will last forever. It's impressive. Like I said, I've been so impressed with the X1s on our setup that I haven't even thought, oh, we need to get V10s, but.
No, they're great. I mean, I don't have any desire to replace the ones on my kegerator. They work great. That's all I used last night, since it was the only beer I had that wasn't frozen.
Did you save me any of my breakfast stout? Is there any left? Because our system has like maybe a gallon at home.
Really? That's good to know.
You didn't save any, did you?
No, there's some in there, definitely.
Last time we were all sucking up to you at the beginning of the show, and I failed to mention, you were talking about his lemon drop being the best beer ever brewed. James, did you try his amber? I drank.
Oh, yeah, I've got a keg of it. It's really.
You have a
good.
Keg of the amber? Oh,
yep.
That's where it went. I drank like a gallon and a half of it when I was up there last week.
It's really, really good. It's got a really cool finish that I like.
I know. It's like it has like a biscuit forward kind of. I can't describe it. It's not like
it's hard to even describe what it tastes like. It smells and tastes like at the end, but it's unique. It's a home run.
My cousin had several of them last night, and he's from Midland. And I talked to him this morning. He's like, Todd, how much alcohol did that beer have in it?
A lot.
Well, I would say your amber did finish at like 7, didn't it? Or what is it actually at?
Yeah, 7.5.
Yeah, 7. Yeah.
Wow.
Maybe that's why I was liking it so much. After the 4th pour, I was like, Todd, this is the best beer you've ever made. And
when you start repeating yourself over and over again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But we actually are considering, I think we're very strongly considering making that a recipe kit for the Trub Club for the future. We've talked about doing, I think we should too. We've talked about doing the lemon drop Pilsner, and the only thing is not everyone's set up for lagering. We're going to figure that out one of these months. So I'll do a poll and see if
we need to brew one with the ale yeast and see how
the pseudo lager.
I already told you what we're going to do. So this is what we're going to do. You're going to have to plan ahead.
Oh no!
And email all the Trub Club members and ask them if they want the lager or if they want the ale, and then we'll but give us 2 or 3 weeks so we can get everything together, and then we'll offer both the same month.
Okay, so that's a good idea. I can plan that. Let's do the amber for April. I'm giving spoilers, right?
Because it starts with an A, I guess.
April's amber, yeah. And
amber ale.
And then we'll do 2 options.
In April.
And we'll do options for May. That's what we'll do. We'll do options. Okay. One of them may or may not be the lemon drop Pilsner. Spoiler alert.
May or may not.
May or may.
In May.
Yeah. In May. Look at that, Todd. You are the observant one today. Anyway, thank you, Adam, so much for submitting your question. Moving on, question number 3 is another voicemail, this time from our buddy Matt in Maryland.
Hey guys, this is Matt from Frederick, Maryland. I wanted to submit a question because I'm considering getting into pressure fermentation. And my question is, currently I use a bucket fermenter and a fermentation chamber to control the temperature. And I know with pressure fermentation, you can go at higher temps. But when I'm trying to replicate a recipe from Brewer's Friend, do I still need the fermentation chamber? I mean, I want the flavor profile to kind of copy over. And if I'm fermenting under pressure, I want to know if the higher pressure actually impacts anything on the flavor. So hopefully you guys can explore on that a little bit, and I'd love to know more. And love the show. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, Matt, for submitting the question. That's a good question. I've never fermented under pressure because I don't have that setup yet. I have considered getting one of, like, Blickman has a pretty affordable PET plastic pressure fermentation kit. I've considered getting for here at my house. I want to still get a stainless steel conical for my pop's place. But anyways, James, I'm going to throw it to you first. What do you think about pressure fermenting and then still utilizing temperature control throughout the post-primary stage of the fermentation?
So I'm guessing the whole, because we typically don't do that. We'll do, after I do a diacetyl rest, I'll put the valve on the conical, and then there'll be enough there during the diacetyl that it'll add a little bit of carbonation. But I'm assuming this is so you can fully carbonate it under pressure. You got a splending valve that can relieve pressure as it's. But I really don't know a whole lot about that. That's something that I need to do my homework on.
So you've never, like, from primary. I know people are doing it for lagers specifically, right? Because they're utilizing that primary some pressure, and that's helping them ferment higher temp and turn it around quicker. That's my understanding of pressure fermentation. I'm a stranger to it as well.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how that would affect the yeast under pressure. Would it cause the yeast activity to slow down? Does it? I wish I could answer this question more completely, but I just haven't dabbled in that enough. But that's something we definitely need to check out. It might make a good comparison video.
And that is an interesting point. Because the way the yeast interacts with the sugar does directly affect the flavor. We agree on that, right? And what is the pressure doing to the behavior of the yeast is what you're saying, right? That's a question that we don't know. Todd, what do you think? I am going on a limb here to say you've never done pressure fermenting either. You've added
what's pressure fermenting?
Are you? I can't tell if you're even joking or not.
I have no. I mean, the only thing I can tell you is that I have when I brew either an ale or a lager on the big fermenter, which obviously works under pressure, when things start to slow down, I will pull it off the bubbler and let it build up pressure and carbonate. But I don't think that's what he's talking about. I'm not familiar with it at all.
Right.
Never heard of it.
So what we need to do is get into it ourselves, but also solicit an expert in it, and we can have them on the show. And because I do get a lot of questions. Matt was the first voicemail, so I was like, you know what, it's a voicemail. Todd tells me put voicemails on here, so I was like, I'm gonna get that on there. We get a lot of pressure fermentation questions, and what I tell them in the email, like, hey, I'd love to take this on the show. None of us utilize it yet. When we're doing lager, like in my anecdotal searching on Google in the past, I believe the most common style utilizing pressure fermentation is lagers. People trying to turn a lager around quick instead of waiting weeks and weeks and weeks, that they're turning it around in 10 days or whatever. I'm making numbers up, but that's one of the reasons why they're doing pressure fermentation, is as a brewing or fermenting technique to turn the beer around quicker. I don't otherwise see any benefit to doing it, but
well, you'd have natural carbonation. You wouldn't have to force carbonate anything, because
that's a great point.
Carbonated.
That is that's a great point. But yeah, like what Todd's saying, our in-house experience has been pressure carbonating in the fermentation vessel, but that's totally different than using pressure during primary. I will say some of the basics that I can think off the top of my head. If you're going to utilize this, first and foremost, you have to have a vessel that can handle pressure, right? You're not going to get
a relief valve,
and a spunding valve, right? Is what it's called. And the spunding valve James, you know more than I do. I'm making stuff up right now.
It's designed to.
Yeah,
pop
I mean,
off around 10 pounds.
I don't know anything about it. So
yeah, you don't have a spunding valve, Todd. Oh no, wait, the CF15 has one on it.
His fermenter and the one in the brew room both have them.
They do. I know the one in the brew room did. I just assumed you put it on there, but I've seen it on yours in there. It just allows for when it hits that mats. What is the mats on a spunding? Is it 20? 15.
Is it 15?
On ours is 15. Yeah.
Okay. So I thought it was 10 to 12. But,
so it hits 15 and then starts letting it out.
Yeah, it'll scare you when it opens up. It definitely will.
Everything with pressure scares me.
Because I had one, the gauge was not reading correctly, and I was trying to get as much pressure as I could, and it hit, and I like to jump 10 feet off the ground and it popped off.
So
that's my biggest fear is I get a valve, a pressure relief valve that sticks.
Yep.
And that pressure keeps building and building, and then the next thing you know, the lid is through the ceiling.
Yeah. This is I'll get us back on topic, I swear, but real quick story. I have a CO2 cylinder out of hydro date by like 5 years, and Todd was like, you can't fill that, man, it's not legal. And I was like, oh, I was thinking about doing it behind his back or something. And then he goes, those things can explode. And I don't know if you were smart enough to say that because I'm terrified.
Oh yeah, I knew. I could tell what you were thinking, and I was like, all I got to do is tell him they can explode, and he'll back off.
And I googled it, and they can explode. Oh my!
That's the reason they require hydro every 5
I thought
years.
you were lying, and I was going to go get Vilver to fill it for me, and I googled it in my office. I was like, holy crap, they can.
Did you not see the sign outside?
Oh, I ripped it up. You didn't see that? Todd put a sign
Vilver's
up.
very aware. I've absolutely forbidden Vilver from filling a CO2 cylinder.
He told me, because even before I Googled it and I went to him, I go, oh, I have a cylinder. And he said, no, Todd told me I can't fill these for you. I said, Vilver, my brother, you wouldn't? And apparently you write the checks. I don't. So you're not going to fill it for me. But I'm with you, James. Pressurized vessels terrify me. That's where I was saying you need to make sure, guys, if you're doing pressure fermentation or any pressurization in a fermentation vessel, make sure you know the PSI rating of that vessel, because Lord knows you don't want a glass carboy trying to add 10, 15 PSI to it. You're going to have a really bad day. I mean, you're going to die, probably. I don't know. The glass shards may miss you a little, but because I think what is the max? You can add like 1 PSI to a glass carboy safely. Maybe 2.
I mean, I think when I transfer, it's usually 3 or 4.
Oh, you're a madman. I think 2 is what they say is top, and 2 will push, the liquid good enough. You push it too much, but yeah, the spunding valve, like James said, most of these kits, like I know Blickman has one. I think Firmzilla, which is from Kegland, which I think go through more beer. I'll look and put links in the description.
That's the polymer.
Yeah, that PET.
2 never exceed 2 PSI is the first thing that popped up.
I told you on glass carboys. Yeah, but
and then the next one says 2 to 3.
Nope. The first Google search is always truth, just like if it's on Wikipedia.
So then
true.
we go with 1 pound.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, but Blickmid, Firmzilla, there's a lot of options for safe, and they usually sell it with the whole kit. Here's your fermenter, your PET fermenter. Here's your spunding valve, everything. And the plastic ones are the very affordable options. Obviously, I like the stainless steel conicals, and you just get to spend some more money. But the bells and whistles, like on the CF15 that you guys have, make it basically a unitank where you're doing primary, you're doing cold conditioning, and you're doing carbonation in one vessel and serving it. But that wasn't.
There's a company, actually, believe it or not, they use our disconnects, and they sell a corny keg with a floating dip tube, a splunding valve, and they said that you can do the beer in it and let it ferment, and it naturally carbonates, and all you got to do is just cold crash it, and then serve it.
That sounds just like that Blickman cornicle, I think they call it, where it's the 5-gallon corny keg that has like a conical attachment on the bottom. You put it on for when you're dumping the Trub, Lorena, not Trub. And then it has the floating dip tube and all that. Yeah, there are solutions out there. But Matt, Matt, I apologize we couldn't go in depth of pressure fermentation. I would love to hear your comment.
I can't believe that our answer is this long when none of us have any idea. That's the amazing thing.
I'm good at my job, man. Of making the show last almost an hour. No, Matt, we will get an answer for you. We'll try to find. I know in our realm, guys, we have not just in our audience community, but also in our friend circle. I'll get people messaging me immediately after I publish this going, Josh, have me on. I'd love to take Matt's question. So we'll get someone with pressure fermentation experience to do a more in-depth answer. And like James said, I think we should try it on one of these. We should read more into it and try it and see if we notice a difference. Next time Todd does a limit drop, we'll try
I don't think we don't believe in these newfangled things like pressure fermentation.
That's right. Todd, you know what though? Hot dog. I always give Todd crap for being in the Stone Age with technology. He was pushing QR codes a decade ago and I made fun of him. And look, the pandemic hit and QR codes are everywhere. They're everywhere. Yep. Todd, you always get the last laugh.
Yep, that's the future. QR codes are the future.
And the fat
pressurized fermentation. Not so sure about that. It seems kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, the fats machine.
And I think it's also the fact that you're used to doing it a certain way,
yes.
And once you get set in your ways, it's hard to try anything.
It is. Well, and especially we say this all the time for people listening. Whatever works for you, keep doing it. And we have our ways set up to where if pressure fermentation did prove to be a huge benefit, we might eventually work it into our way. But like the way the three of us brew, and I'm heavily influenced by the way these two guys brew, it just works, right? And it makes sense and it's straightforward. And so that's why, like you said, James, we just haven't worked it into it. But people who are using it, leave a comment if you're watching this in the YouTube comments below. Let me know when you pressure ferment and why you do, or send me an email, joshua@homebrewhappyhour.com if you're one of our many audio listeners, and let us know, because we'd be interested in knowing the pros and cons and
absolutely
and following up on this.
Get some feedback on that.
Absolutely. So Matt, thank you so much for submitting that question. Our final question on this week's episode came from our buddy Roy, who used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Roy wrote, "Hello, gentlemen. I love Homebrew Happy Hour, and I've learned so much from you guys, believe it or not. I got bit by the brew bug in 2020 and have already brewed 16 batches. My question is about burnout." Yeah. How do you prevent it? I'm still in a honeymoon phase in my relationship with brewing, but I worry that I'm pushing it and one day I'll feel burned out and lose interest. I'm many batches in and also many dollars invested in better equipment on the brewing and fermentation side of things. Have any of you experienced brewing burnout, and what did you do about it? All my best to you and yours, Roy. Maybe this is an admission that I'm kind of an alcoholic. I've never burned out, but I don't brew that much. I drink y'all's beer, so that might be.
That's funny you said that. That was going to be my answer. Was Josh deals with it by having me brew his beer for him?
See, who's the brains of the operation, huh? Who's the brains? That is how I get by. But Todd, I'm going to throw it to you first because you're Mr. Brew in 2022. That rhymed. You've brewed already in this year 5 batches, I think. In 2022 you've done 5 batches, and it's only we're on the 3rd day of the 3rd month. So does brewing burnout happen to you, or do you run out of room in your storage and stuff before you can get burned out?
I have gone through stages in my life where I've stopped brewing, but I've brewed on and off for over 30 years, so I've gone through very long stages, but it wasn't because I was burned out. It was because something changed in my life. So, going to college and not having a place to brew, having kids and getting busy with a job, things like that. Mainly getting busy with a job. The kids didn't really slow me down a bit. So yeah, I've had a lot and just not having a place to brew, moving, that sort of thing. So I don't think I've ever gotten to the point where I said, I don't want to brew. It's just, I'd love to brew, but I don't have time or I don't have the place.
Hey, I don't want to correct you and call you out because you're old, but you're actually coming up on 40 years of brewing. Just not 30. You started when you were 16, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're coming up close. You're closer to 40 than 30 years,
man. 39 of my 39 years of brewing.
Yeah. You said 30 and I was thinking, no, he's closer to 40. And James,
when I started brewing, the legal drinking age was only like a year and a half away for me. So that's amazing, right?
Nobody cared. That was back in the days when you were drinking and driving. The cops just said, hey, okay, get home safely now. Like they didn't actually ticket you.
Oh yeah. And if you went into a place that sold homebrewing stuff, they certainly didn't ask you how old. They didn't give a crap how old you were. Hell, it was the grocery store.
It was back then, right?
Yeah. You were just buying groceries. It was I forgot the name. The Co-op in Austin. I don't even know if it's
University Co-op is where you used to get your ingredients. No way. I don't think they're open either. But they were around forever. They were on the drag, weren't they, on Guadalupe? But
they had 2 locations. They had one down on Lamar. But anyway,
James, you're almost at 20 years, or you're over 20 years of brewing now?
Almost 20.
Almost 20. Have you? But because you've only been with us for 6 years, 5 years.
6 years in this year.
Coming up on 6 years, you've been with us. Did you ever?
No, 7 years this year. Sorry.
So of the decade or so before that you were already brewing, did you ever experience burnout? Because right now, the easy answer for me to tell Roy would be, I work at a company that enables me to want to brew, and it's not like I ever view this as a job, but it certainly encourages me to keep brewing. Before you were in that position too, did you ever get burnout? We're like, you know what? I'm done brewing. This hobby sucks. Or maybe not that, just that you got overwhelmed.
Initially, when I first got started, I had a couple of bad batches, really bad batches, and I thought this was a waste of money and time, because if I can't make something I like to drink, I might as well just spend the money on canned or bottled beer, you know. But it took I remember the first really good beer I made was a wheat beer, and I drove all the way to Fort Worth, and there was a retired couple that had a wine ingredient and beer ingredient store, and I'd talked to them about, the guy was super cool, and I told him about my experiences so far, and he was apologetic and said, let me put something together for you I think you'll like. And he nailed it. It was a Texas wheat beer. And I did it. It was an extract, mini mash. And it really changed my whole attitude about home brewing. And then I realized that I could brew something I would like. And after that, I never have turned back. There's been times when I didn't brew, and it was like Todd said, it was something happened in my life where I couldn't do it like I can now. But I'll always brew. If I feel like I'm getting burnt out, you need to just take a break for a while.
That's what I was going to say. You'll miss
it.
Yes,
especially if you start buying bottled beer, and you've got the bottles to throw away, and then the cost. Craft beer now, a 12-pack of craft beer is over $20.
Oh, dude, yeah. You go to any bar, I saw all these tap rooms now, they're starting at $7 a pour, and that's like their special price. It's like $8 for a pint at a craft beer tap room. Just for the crazy pint. So remember we were getting 6 packs for $8. I mean, it was Lone Star, but I wish, there's a lot of context too that maybe some other people have. And again, this is a great question that we'd love feedback on in the comments below, where I would say, Roy, if you're not already, joining a homebrew club might help with the burnout, because having community in any hobby is always a good way to better enjoy that hobby, in my experience, where brewing with my dad makes brewing more enjoyable because we're spending time together, we're learning the process together, and throughout the brew day, when it's mashing and we have nothing to do, we'll play a game of bag toss, or we call it cornhole, but I always feel dirty calling it cornhole. But you know what I mean? Like the community part at a homebrew club, you may be exposed to other styles you may never have thought to brew, and that might reinvigorate your passion of like, oh my God, like Todd just brewed a Belgian double or quad.
Double, yeah.
Yeah, and it's so pretentious. I saw your brewer's friend profile. You called it double de Todd or something like that.
Double de Todd.
Yeah, you mentioned it's so stupid. But
of course, that's the reason I named it that. It was so stupid.
Todd swears that it's a great beer and that I'm going to like it. That's not a style I usually like, but I'm looking forward, because if I do like it, then it'd be like, oh my God, maybe my dad and I could try brewing that to have some, you know what I mean? Like joining a community like a homebrew club, I think is my first recommendation if you're actually feeling burned out. Being able to share your beer and get feedback from other like-minded or like hobbyist individuals, because they'll give you the best feedback. Like my family on our beer, it's either I like that beer or I don't like that beer.
I think a lot of people brew they get into channels where they brew. Like I like to brew all kinds of stuff, and I get a kick out of trying a different beer every time, and I don't want to brew the same beer again. I mean, I do, but not in the same year maybe. But whereas James, you like to brew a certain style of beer and just get it better and better and
lagers.
Better. And Josh, we don't have to talk about Josh.
You would think I would get burned out. I don't. I can have Kolsch I can have Kolsch every day. I really could.
But with Josh, you remember when we first started brewing, all three of us together, he wasn't really brewing a whole lot. He's brewing a lot more now.
Yeah, he is brewing a lot more.
That's true.
Yeah.
And again,
he's come a long way.
The community part of it, just the three of us, I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to contribute to the beer trade first and foremost. Is why I started. That's why I started brewing more. I want to contribute to the beer trade, but also the amount that y'all brew and how good you brew. Being around people who brew good beer makes me want to brew good beer. And that one time when my dad and I's Kolsch did mess up, I don't know if y'all remember, that's when I kind of stalled out on brewing as much, where I was just like, because I let it get to me where I was like, son of a gun, we brew bad beer. But it was just that one batch. Since then.
And it's going to happen. If you brew beer, you're going to have a batch that's not.
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, Roy, I would love for our community to put your tips for Roy in the comments, or again, email me and I'll include it on future listener feedback, because burnout with any hobby can happen. And a lot of the times, like James said, the easiest fix is to just step back. And you're just remember, it's a hobby. If you're not enjoying it, why are you doing it? That's how I feel every day with my job too. Todd tells me to do a task and I'm like, I'm not enjoying this. I'm going to stop doing it. And then I get reprimanded, but we c'est la vie.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you ever want to just do this as volunteer work, you can kind of do whatever you want.
That's the last question we had on the show, guys. Can y'all believe it? I can segue us out of here now. No, Roy, thank you so much for submitting your questions. And again, this show, every show, but I don't do it enough. We want your feedback. If you can help the people that we have taken questions from with answers that are even better than ours, we'll include it on a future episode, because we are all about learning with you and getting the best information out there, or ideas, because we may do it one way and you do it another, and whatever works for you, right? So Roy, thank you so much, guys. That is actually all I have for this week. You're
awesome.
Right. You're right, Todd. I was able to drag this out on a question where we didn't know a lot about. That's the story of my life. But anyways, thank you guys so much for your time. I'll be up there next week with y'all, and I'll see you then.
All right. Thank you.
And that will do it for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you would like us to discuss on a future episode, go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on that submit a question link at the top of the page. Or now you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. Brew your best beer yet with the new Grainfather G40 all-in-one electric system, available now at grainfather.com. Also, get a free pack of Imperial Yeast with premium recipes from us when you join our Trub Club, patreon.com/homebrew happy hour to learn more. On behalf of Todd Burns, James Carlson, and the Pearl Media Network, I'm Joshua Stubing. Thank you for listening.